So, hello and welcome along to another edition of Isolation Interviews for Hospital Radio and my YouTube channel. I'm super excited because this is my 100th show, and I'm super excited that my guest is the fantastic Lucinda Cowden, aka Melanie Pearson from Neighbours. Thank you for joining me. How are you?
It's such a pleasure, Matthew. I'm really good, thank you. We're in lockdown here in Melbourne, in the most lockdown city in the world. But we're coping and we're keeping our chins up. Well, we're trying.
I was going to say, obviously, we had our really strict lockdown back at the sort of beginning of the year. So we're sort of back to sort of normality, although I don't know how you don't want to sort of curse it or anything.
I know. Nobody knows how long these things are going to last, do they? I know.
And then obviously for you guys, it was kind of the opposite. You were, doing really well. And then it kind of went sort of backwards, really. So sending our love to everyone over in Australia. Hopefully you're out of this soon.
We are receiving it. Thank you. We're all fine. I noticed that there were people outside an American embassy saying "Save Australia" as if there's some terrible thing happening to us, but we're actually fine. We've had so little death here, and I think we've been really keen to try and keep that down as much as possible, and the lockdowns have been working, but they just haven't worked with the Delta strain in the same way that they worked with the other strains. So that's the unfortunate bit. So we tried to do what we did last time really well, and this time it's just been really long and the cases keep going up. And so, yeah, I don't know how we do this. I don't know how we get ourselves ready for this sort of living with COVID thing. I don't know. But you guys seem to be having a good old go at it. So
yeah, somehow it seems to be working. So we'll, fingers crossed, hopefully continue with it. Now, obviously, the great thing for you is that you have been able to continue working on Neighbours. So, how have things changed over the last sort of year or so? How have they become different, really?
Look, when I got there, it was this time last year. So it was this time last year that I joined, and came back I think I came back just for 6 weeks at that point. And it was all COVID safe there. So the way they did it, because Neighbours is the only place the only show that's shot out of those studios, they divided the studios into 4 sections. So the cast were divided in 2. So we've got a location cast and that work mainly on location, and a studio cast that work mainly on studios. In the middle, on Wednesday and Thursday, we have crossover days, so we can go into the studio if we're on location. We don't go into certain areas. So we've only got little bits that we go into, except on those crossover days. And of course, we're all masked up and we wear our visors and we do all that stuff, and we're continually, every time we have to touch each other, we're sanitized and all that sort of stuff, which is pretty weird. But, we keep on working, which is, I think, such an important thing during these times, just for everybody's, because, it's actually been our social life has been at work. So that's the only time you get to see the only people that you don't live with. So, so look, it's been amazing that they have done it. And there's some super clever people at Fremantle that organised it and came up with it really quickly and got it into action super quickly. I think they actually only stopped working for 2 or 3 weeks. So yeah, it was amazing. It's amazing I suppose people in film crews are used to working in exceptional circumstances. I suppose, when we're out on location filming, a movie or something, there's exceptional circumstances. Everybody does exceptional things to get things done. So I think everyone's just kicked into gear and,
I was going to say, I think Neighbours was the first show, or at least the first soap opera in the world to actually go back to filming. So to be a part of that must be quite exciting, that you're kind of leading the way, really, for other shows as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Showing that there is a way of doing this, which is great, and particularly for the industry, which has been so incredibly hardly hit, particularly here. And we have had hardly any government funding or government help in the arts at all, unfortunately, because we have quite a cruel government here. I know you guys do too, but let's not get too political, Matthew.
Now, I suppose we should go back to where it all sort of started for you with Neighbours. I mean, back in '87 was when the character of Melanie obviously first came to you. I mean, do you remember sort of how much of the character did you know when you first went for the audition? How did it come about for you?
All there was it was actually, it wasn't, I didn't even have dialogue for Melanie at that case when I went for the audition. It was actually dialogue from another Grundy's TV show, and there was this there was a laugh. We want somebody who can laugh like I think that it said that it was, they wanted someone who could laugh that was like a cross between a seal honking and a donkey braying. So so that's where I came up with the laugh, because I was like, well, how does that happen? Trying to work out where to place it in my throat and all that sort of stuff. It was all very technical. but yeah, so I went in, and funnily enough, the person that did my audition is actually Annie Jones's husband.
Oh, wow.
And yes, and who's been a friend, Paul, for a really long time. So he just was like, okay, Liz, what are you going to do? And I was like, well, I just thought I'd, whack this out, mate. And he thought it was hysterical, said, okay, thank you very much. There were other people that went in, other people that auditioned. And yes, I got the part. And at that point, I think I went in for a month, I think, as Henry's girlfriend. And it was just so much fun, because I had this like trick to make that I went in and did, and everybody just thought it was hilarious. So that was really fun. It was a really nice way to enter, because, there's so many thousands of guests at stars that, go through Neighbours and stuff. And so you sort of just think, how am I going to stand out? And well, hello, have this totally crazy mental laugh, and that might do the trick. So,
I mean, we must make it clear that isn't actually your laugh in real life. I mean, do you get many people that think that is your real laugh?
Oh yeah, of course they do. Yeah, can you do the laugh? Can you do the laugh? Can you do the laugh? Yeah, and I tell you what, when I went back to doing the show, I was trying to find it, and it was really weird, because it was like, oh God, it was so, I could get that bit, but it was like, I had to do all this, I had to physically do all this stuff, which I didn't do first time. But, when I first started, it was like, I had to drag it out of me, sort of thing. So it was, yeah, it was funny trying to re-find her.
Now, I mean, obviously, when you were first in the show, you were there, like you said, for a short while, and it was only ever originally going to be for a short stint. And because then you went off to do another soap, which I don't think it did very well.
No.
But I mean, I read somewhere that apparently the day that you rang up the executive producer of Neighbours to kind of say, I want to come back, was the same day that Annie Jones had actually decided she didn't want to extend her contract.
Absolutely right. It was like a really strange symmetry, or yeah, it was crazy, because I actually didn't ring him back saying, could you have me back? I got the sack off the show that I was in. The show was doing really badly. It was actually called The Power and the Passion, and it was Australia's first go at making its own daytime soap, and it was recorded in real time, almost live, and it was terrible. But you can be good in terrible things, but I wasn't good in that terrible thing. I was distinctly average in that one, and so they were getting rid of me. And one of the lovely director's assistants that worked on Power and the Passion was a really good mate of Mark Callan's, who was the executive producer on Neighbours at the time. And she said, I think that they'd be interested in you coming back if they knew that this was happening, And she said, why don't you give Mark a ring? And I was like, I can't do that, actors don't just ring producers directly. That just doesn't happen. And she was like, okay, well, why don't I ring him and pass him over to you? And I was like, oh, okay. So he said, oh, that's really weird, because, you worked in the office, and, Annie Jones's character, Jane, had been in the office. And so we were looking somebody to sort of fill that, and, you know, would you be interested? And I was like, yeah. And so had an interview, a meeting kind of thing with him, and we discussed what we thought, you know, where Melanie could go and what she could do and all that sort of stuff. And they went a big yes, and I went an even bigger yes, because it was, you know, I was like, oh no, you know, this is my first, you know, like proper being in a main part in the soap, and I'm out in the first, like, you know, 9 months or something. So I was pretty down. So it was fantastic for that to happen. It was really, really like the universe. Well, Melanie would say the universe wanted it to happen.
And I mean, of course, you were there for 4 years, and I mean, the character obviously over that time grew. I mean, people still to this day love Melanie so much. She's such a popular character, and I mean, did you kind of have an idea as to the popularity, or was it something that you know you only found out later?
Well, I remember getting the first sort of info about how the UK was taking to Melanie, and it was interesting because, you know, Australians don't really embrace that sort of eccentricity in the same way that the Brits do, and so I was kind of interested to see how it was going to go down in the UK. And everyone, when I first heard the feedback, everyone was like, oh, she's mad, she's just mental, she's just mad, sort of thing. And I was like, oh dear, it's too much, you know, it's not, they don't like it, you know. But, you know, regardless, I just kept on doing what I did. But it wasn't until I actually came over and, you know, sort of experienced the whole sort of adoration that people had for the show, not just for the character but for the show. And, you know, and it was on twice a day, and I just couldn't get that. I was like, well, what did you miss the first time? It's not like the plot lines are that difficult to follow. So yeah, I was surprised but delighted that she'd been taken into people's hearts so much.
And the other thing as well at that point is there was quite a gap between where Australia was and where the UK was. So, because you actually went or came to the UK in, I think, 93. And by that point, you had left the show sort of a year or two earlier.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that must have been quite strange to kind of come to the UK. And 2 years later, you're
And
still
it's
there.
still on the telly. Yeah, yeah. I think it was 2 years behind at that stage. So I would have left in 92, I would imagine. I think it was sometime in 92. And I came, because I think I did a panto over the Christmas period of 91 and 92. And then I went back to work, and then came back and did a panto and a little tour of Peter Pan and stuff. And yeah, and it was amazing. I was still on the telly. And it was like it was years ago. So that was fantastic, because you got this sort of afterlife, which was really, really good. And, you know, and I did some presenting in the UK, which I really loved. I did some kids presenting. And yeah, I really enjoyed being there, and I loved the theatre there, and I loved working in the theatre there. So I came over and stayed for like 16 years or something ridiculous. So I really, really liked it. And I loved the amount of different options that you had as an actor there compared to here. It just really blew my mind that you could be working all the time and not necessarily be on the television 100% of the time, if you know what I mean. You could be working in the theatre, and you could be doing festivals, and you could do, you know, it really excited me. And also the proximity to everywhere comparative to Australia. You know what I mean? When you're in Australia, you can do an Australian tour, which could take a really long time because Australia's a huge place. But that doesn't happen very often because of the difficulties of actually getting everything from one place to the other. So the idea that you just continually worked and did different shows, and I just loved it. So I loved working in the UK, and I have a very soft spot for the UK, and my brother still lives in the UK, and his family still live in the UK. And hello, and yeah, and I still have a heap of friends there. yeah. So hopefully one day when we can fly again, I'll come over again.
Fingers crossed, we'll get you back over here. Now, of course, over the years, obviously leaving in sort of roughly about 92. Between then and obviously when you returned earlier this year, I imagine you still. I mean, did you still get lots of people who would come up to you and be like, "Oh, Melanie, Melanie"? I mean, has that ever really died out, or has it always continued?
It didn't happen so much when I came back here. I think, well, it had been a really long time. and there were a lot of people that, anyone under 30 had no idea who I was. No, but in the UK, I think because it was watched so much more, and it was a part of people's growing up. So when that happened, you earn this lovely place in their life when they didn't have a whole lot going on. And they all they had was some daggy show where the sun shined, and people sort of, went, "Will you go around with me?" and stuff like that. And it was a bit like their life, but a different version of it. And so people take that, it's like a part of your childhood that you remember fondly. And so, which is just such a privileged place to be. But you become that. So it's sort of like you remind people of a happier time, or maybe a more simple time, or a time when life was a little bit easier than it is now. So I think that whole nostalgia thing is super important to get us through times like this as well, to keep us, aware that it's not always like this. And there's freedom, and there's fun, and there's silliness, and there's just sort of silly, daggy Neighbours stuff, which even as it is silly, daggy Neighbours stuff, it really is. That's really important to people's, mental health and well-being, and ability to think that's okay. Look, things were a bit crap then, but they got better, and all that sort of stuff, I suppose.
I mean, when you obviously left the show, when you leave any sort of show, did you sort of continue to watch it after leaving, or did you find it hard to continue to watch it once you'd sort of stepped away?
Well, it was. I think I did for a little while, and then I kind of felt like I was being a bit, if I liked it that much, why don't I go back and be in it? If you know what I mean. It was sort of like, so I kind of felt the need to move on. And then when I went over to the UK, then it was all there again. So you could watch it every now and then, but it was sort of a bit funny. I don't know. See, I wasn't really a Neighbours watcher before I was in it, I suppose. So, but I did like to be able to sort of see who was in it. Like, oh, so-and-so's left, or oh, so-and-so's back, or, all that sort of stuff. And also, while I was in the UK, I would also catch up with a lot of the actors while they were over in the UK, because everybody still came over to do panto and different things, different projects. So yeah, there was a lot of sort of Neighbours catch-ups in the UK.
I mean, obviously back, the first time you were in Neighbours, I mean, you had some amazing storylines. I mean, for you, was there a particular favourite? Was there one that you enjoyed more than others, or was it just the whole experience was just amazing?
There was definitely ones that I enjoyed more than others, absolutely. I just loved all the comedy, I just thought Mel was just such a joy to play, because she's just such a, free spirit, and you can kind of ask her to do anything and she will, as opposed to often you're like, no, I don't know whether she'd do that, or I don't know whether that when you read things you're like, oh really, whereas with Mel you just go, yeah, why not why not, put on a wedding dress and hail a cab and turn up at your best friend's wedding in her wedding dress, and then ruin her honeymoon by getting stuck on the ship afterwards. So I did absolutely adore that storyline. That was Paul and Chrissy's wedding. I loved that. That was absolutely hilarious. I also loved the Joe and Mel getting together stuff that was the perfect match stuff when they met, they got each other in the show. That was really funny as well. And there was some great stuff that I did with a great friend of mine, a guy who became a great friend of mine, who played the Reverend Richards, a guy called Anthony Fletcher. We had some really funny stuff to do together. There was a karaoke scene that was very funny. There was, you know, he was a priest, and she'd sort of talk about the thorn birds, and you know, so you know, do you do it and that? So, you know, she just has to ask every embarrassing question. And there was some tap dancing and some singing with Harold, and there was there was a cake competition where Melanie made a pig cake, and you know, there's just so many joyous moments that I remember, you know, and everyone just laughing, and you know, it just being heaps of fun to do, because you could get away with doing so many things. You could just, you know, you go, oh, shall I do this? And the director goes, yeah. So it still is heaps of fun to play.
Now, obviously, you returned for a brief while in 2005 for obviously the big anniversary, but then obviously fast forward to 2021 and you make your big return. Did you take much convincing, or was it a sort of a straight away yes, had to go back?
It was a straight away yes, and that part of the reason why it was a straight away yes because all my other work disappeared through COVID. So I think this was last year, and I think I got the first phone call just asking, you know, would I contemplate it? Am I at all interested? Because Neighbours have, you know, said, would you be interested? So just a very kind of general call. My agent said, there's no contract, there's no anything, you're not being offered anything. They're just wondering what your feelings might be. And I'm like, oh, well, my feelings would be that I could be one of the few actors working in Australia at this moment in time, which, of course, my agent was very pleased about, saying that he could be one of the few agents in Australia getting 10% of somebody's wages. So that was the first drop, and it was like, don't get excited. It's just an idea at the moment. So that was like, okay. And you know, you've got so much time when you're in lockdown to your mind to go. So it was like, okay, so what would that mean? And anyway, try not to think about it too much. Get another call come July saying, okay, yeah, they're wanting to plot you in. So it will probably be in October sometime, and it'll just be for a couple of weeks, and we'll see how it goes. So yeah, and it really melted my mind, and I think that's part of the sort of whole lockdown brain stuff of there's not enough things to think about. You can only make so much sourdough, and clean so many recesses in your house. So, so it was just like an amazing bolt out of the blue, and yeah, I took all of 10 seconds to go, yeah, absolutely, I would love to do that.
And I mean,
sorry.
No, I was just going to say the amazing thing, obviously, this time around is obviously social media is such a big thing. And I mean, did you ever realise that there would be such a craving for Melanie to come back? I mean, all over Twitter, people were just super excited to see her back.
Yeah, I had no idea. No, I that was totally unexpected and completely joyous. And yeah, the reaction has just been so delightful and so heartwarming and just lovely, you know. So that's been great. That's been really great, and it's been so much fun working with Ryan as well. And I never would have expected that. I was shocked to my core, because we did the first section, and I was just working for him, and that seemed to work really nicely. I thought that was great. I thought it was a really nice, fun. They were two fun characters who could have a really fun office friendship. And so that was the first block. And so then all of a sudden the next block of scripts don't come in until sort of after Christmas, because I didn't go back until the end of January. So there was quite a long break for me there. And the scripts came in, and it was all this sort of affair. And I was like, oh, you know, I'm like 14 years older than Ryan. So that was, and that makes you feel a bit, I don't know, a little bit concerned about, you know, social media backlash, and she's old and all that sort of stuff coming up, and it being, but there wasn't too much of that. So I think people sort of embraced it in a way of just, they're just two great characters that have this sort of adoration for each other, which and respect and all sorts of things that are really nice. And he is just an absolute joy to work with. And you just like, I just call him like the acting Terminator, because he's been there for so long and he just knows it. So his eyes scan, it's like, oh, that's supposed to be there, that's supposed to be there, and we've got to be in this light, and you need to be a little bit more that way. And he's just amazing. I just am guided by him continually. I sometimes feel like I'm like an 8-year-old kid walking around after their dad, and I'm actually the person who's 14 years older than him.
I mean, that's the other thing, is you don't really see the age gap because they are so similar. They kind of, their personalities work so well. And I think that's why people love them as a couple.
Yeah. No, I think they make a fantastic couple. And I think you're at the moment, they've just got back together, haven't they?
Yes.
So that's all right. I don't have to not say anything and pretend like he's going to end up with Rose or anything. So, phew.
I mean, when those scripts come to you, and that, you know, Rose is obviously brought back, and there's the whole thing of, will he end up with Rose? Will he? I mean, are you secretly hoping, I hope she doesn't get her way? And are you secretly, as an actor, thinking, I hope that they stick together, that Mel and Toadie stick together?
Well, interestingly enough, Jason Herbison, the executive producer, came and told me about the storyline. So I knew the arc, which is good, because, you know, otherwise, as an insecure actress, you'd be going, oh, no, I know. Are they going to get rid of me? Oh, no, I know. So he was like, no, this is the way it's going to work. Rose is because I didn't know about Rose's character before, except for the fact that Toadie had mentioned her as his old PA, as someone he might have gone out with or had a bit of a thing with. And the beautiful Lucy Durack, who is such a divine actress, and we just got along like a house on fire. So it was really funny that we all we had to be yelling at each other and horrible to each other all the time. She was fabulous and really difficult to be nasty to, because she's so sweet and such a gorgeous person. And, you know, there was the scheming Rose, and she's such a great actress that she played it so beautifully. But so, no, we got along. That was we had a really good time filming all that stuff. We all got along great. So, no, I didn't have that, oh God, am I going to be undone by a younger woman? Melanie did, but Lucinda was fine.
And I mean, the other thing as well was that for so long, people were calling for you to finally get put into the opening titles. I mean, for you, I imagine you've known for a while that you were going to be put in, but I mean, the response from people when you finally get put in, because I think that we're just about to see them here in the UK when you finally get put in, as well as the return of Charlotte Chimes, who plays Nicolette. So what, I mean, for you, that must have been fun to know that was coming up and sort of tease the fans a bit.
Yes, well, I wasn't allowed to say anything, and particularly the Neighbours boys had started a whole campaign about it, and I really wanted to say, it's happening, but I couldn't. Because I think they wanted everyone to think that Toadie and Rose were going to end up together. So to have that happen, for them to know that I was going to be in the opening titles, was the whole sort of like, oh, well, they won't be able to, Melanie will be going then. And so I think they wanted to get that sort of like that thing from the fans. Hopefully that happened and they didn't just go, get rid of her. I'm sure some did. But, you can't please everyone all the time, Matthew.
Exactly. Now, obviously, the character is, like we said, doing so well, had so many great storylines. And I say, it's strange it feels like you've been back longer, but it's strange to think, obviously, it was only this year that you came back.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for you, obviously, going forward, is there something you would love to do going forward on the show? Is there a storyline you would love to tackle, or something that you would love to see Melanie face?
I don't really know. I haven't really thought about it, but I probably should. Yeah, I don't know. We've got some good stuff coming up. So there's some health issues coming up for Mel. And I guess, it's sort of, and then she's also involved in a lot of other people's storylines as well. But look, I think I would like to see the psychic Mel, the Madame Zolgari stuff. I would like to see kind of her move into that area of being the sort of wellness guru. I think that would be, or sort of have, I've heard of these classes that people do for wellness, which are called laughter class, like laughing classes. I could imagine Mel starting her own laughter classes or going to a laughter class, and then her laugh being so mental that everybody else couldn't stop laughing. And, I think that would be, I think there's some comedy gold in there to mine, maybe. So I think the whole sort of kooky side of her is great, and I don't think there's anybody else that's doing that sort of thing in the show, and I think that would be a fun road to go down. And I think it could pose some difficulties for Toadie as well, being the lawyer, father, sensible person. So that might be nice. I don't know if you're listening, any writers.
I mean, one of the storylines I must admit that I did love when you first came back was the stuff where Paul Robinson, obviously Stephen Dennis, was trying to hide from Melanie and didn't want to be seen. They looked like a lot of fun to film because he was obviously literally jumping into bushes to avoid you.
Yes, he was. He's very good at that. Look, I think that is a really interesting relationship, the Paul-Melanie relationship. There's been two important times where Paul's actually been there for Mel, and in a storyline that's happening later, she's there for him as well with the troubles with Therese.
I was just going to say, I mean, going forward, is there any characters that you haven't really had chance to interact with that you would love to going forward?
So many. There's so many that, and that's also part of our COVID stuff, you see, they keep people in their little sections, and hopefully as things open up, we'll be able to do more of that sort of stuff. Look, I love the stuff that I've done with Jacinta. I think Melanie and Amy are kind of like, Mel's could be like a bit like her big sister kind of thing. I think there's a nice relationship there to build on. I don't know. I haven't hardly done any work with Rebecca, who plays Therese. I haven't done any work with Aaron and David's, those characters. I love Annie Jones so much, and I love working with Jeff Payne and Annie Jones. It's like, as soon as I see that I've got scenes with them, I'm like, oh, yay! And I think Charlotte Chimes is astonishing. I just love her. She's totally bodacious. That's all I can say about that girl. She is absolutely, she's funny and she's brazen, and she's just such a woman of now. I just adore her. I'd love to do more scenes with her. And yeah, I really like, I don't know, I like that sort of older matriarch stuff in soaps. sort of, and I love Colette. I adore Colette, who plays Sheila. And I think there's also some comedy stuff for Sheila and Mel to do at some point as well. I also absolutely adore working with Jackie and Alan. They are just hilarious. Alan is just ridiculously hilarious, and most of the scenes he's saying he's just trying not to laugh.
And I mean, we must also briefly talk about the scenes which were just aired recently here in the UK, where obviously Melanie eventually won Toadie back, with Susan dressing up as a sort of like a psychic. That was hilarious.
Madame Susanna, and her eyes. Did you see that? She crossed her eyes. She was like, it was absolutely. I had to not look at her because I had to be so terribly sincere, and she was like. Yeah, so that was hilarious, and she loved that. She's such an amazing actress. She really is. You just watch her. She's a fantastic woman and a fantastic actress, and just great to work with.
Now, if you were to meet Melanie in real life, do you think you would be friends? Do you think you could see yourself getting on with her?
Yeah, I do. I think that, and like everybody, initially you would go, what the, and then you'd go, oh, she's fun. She's fun. And Melanie she's got a heart of gold. She might make terrible mistakes, and all the affair stuff, that was totally shocking to me too. And I read that stuff. Oh my goodness, she slept with every boss she's ever had. So that was slightly shocking. But we've all got our foibles and our joybles, I suppose. But yeah, I was shocked by that. I can't remember what the question now was.
About whether you'd be friends, about whether you and Melanie would be friends.
I think I would. I don't know whether I could actually handle her all the time. I think in small doses she'd be great.
And I must also just quickly mention, of course, obviously being part of the Rebecca household now, it must be so much fun to work with the kids, because, obviously Scarlett, who plays Nell, and obviously the actor who plays Hugo, they must be fun to work with.
Yeah, they are so adorable. And the relationship that they have with Ryan is just astonishing. I mean, John actually calls him Dada. And he puts so much time into their relationship, and it's amazing. He's so fantastic with them. I teach, so I love kids, and they are fantastic kids to work with. They're really great. Little John is adorable. He either says nothing or everything in a scene, if you know what I mean. He's either just like, talk, you told me to be quiet, sort of thing, or he's like just talking away, and we have to get rid of him because the talking is going through the whole scenes. And and Scarlett is becoming this gorgeous little actress. And it's really interesting because, she's 9 years old and she's been on the show for 8.5 years. And it's one of those things that she's never really decided that she wanted to be an actor. So it's a really interesting process for her to see her go through that. And now she's watching, and you see her looking, and she's taking all this stuff in now, like a little sponge, and I think she's going to be a really fantastic performer.
I mean, I remember I did an interview a few years back with Eve Morey, who of course plays Sonia, and I remember asking her about what she thought about her amazing performance, and I remember her saying that she said she would be devastated if they recast her, because the reason why the character works so well is because Scarlett's amazing.
Yeah. Absolutely. And Eve has a lot to do with that because Eve still works on the show, and she works with the kids, and she does a lot of drama work with them and script work with them and stuff like that. And she's also our intimacy coordinator, which, is pretty weird when you think about it, because we had her, me and Ryan had her as our intimacy coordinator. And I was like, oh, I kind of feel a bit weird about this because, like, you guys have been together for a really long time, and now you're dead. It's kind of tricky. So, but she's the most divine girl. Gosh, she's amazing. She is just so full of warmth and sincerity and understanding and consideration. She's just such a fantastic person to have on set. So she works with all of the actors. So anyone wanting to do any sort of script work or anything like that, we just all call Eve. So she's still there, which is a fantastic thing. So it's really funny. There's so many people that never leave Neighbours. They may look like they leave Neighbours, but some people, it's like Hotel California.
Well, for anyone that doesn't know, obviously Kate Kendall, who played Lauren, is is she a producer or
director and a producer? Yeah. So she directed some of our recent stuff, but since I've been there, she's been mainly producing. So she's a producer and a director.
And then you've got Scott Major as well, who was Lucas, who's a director now, I believe.
Yes, he's a director now as well, as well as still an actor, working as an actor as well, but not on Neighbours. So it is a bit. It does have that Hotel California. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave.
Do you think going forward that's ever something you'd want to do behind the camera, or something else a part of Neighbours?
I have thought about that. I don't know whether I would direct, but I think I might be interested more in the writing side. I think that's more where, I don't know, I find the directing with TV a little very technical. I think I'd like to do theatre directing, because I think I'm more an actor's director rather than a technical director. And I think with soap, it's so fast. You have to be so all over that stuff. But, they do have little programs through Neighbours that you could do. So I could ask if I could do a tag along sort of thing. So you go and you're part of somebody else's block, and you work as an assistant for them, and you just get a whole idea, and they might let you maybe shoot a couple of scenes yourselves, or block a couple of scenes yourselves, or work with the actors and work out the camera shots and that sort of stuff. So it may be something that I might be interested in. I know that they are interested in getting more women in directing, so that may be something that I might take them up on or show interest in at a later date. I'm not sure yet, Matthew.
No, I just want to say it's been a pleasure talking to you. Before we go, I just wanted to say, of course, fingers crossed that we have Melanie around for a while, because we don't want to lose her. But also, is there any messages you'd like to give to anyone who is listening in hospital at the moment? Anything you'd like to say?
Well, just to keep your chins up, because my mum's actually in hospital at the moment. She she's broken her pelvis in 3 places. She's 89 years old now, and she's not having a very good time in hospital. But I would like to say a very big thank you to all the people that work in hospital and all the healthcare workers, because what you guys do is amazing, and you keep everyone's spirits up. And, us performers, we have to keep everyone's spirits up, but you guys are directly working on the ground. So I want to say thank you to you. I want to say good luck to everybody else with your recoveries. And just try to keep your chins up, because it's not always going to be like this. It is going to get better, and we are going to go back to normal, and you're going to get better too, because, that's what happens in hospital. We get better.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Of course, keep safe. And thank you for giving up your time for me.
such a pleasure to meet you finally, Matthew, after all our toing and froing. And thank you so much for having me.